But let me talk to you for a minute. Let me just bring something to your attention. Okay? Let's look at things for what they are. What if America, the so-called greatest nation on earth, the so-called greatest nation on earth, the so-called wealthiest nation on earth, the so-called most powerful nation on earth, the so-called most influential nation on earth, what if she had a moment of retrospect where she looked within herself and realized that you're alienating the very people that you need to buy your debt? No one, she's had two or three debt sales recently, and you haven't heard much about this in the news. And no one bought her bonds. She had billions in bonds to sell, excuse me, and no one bought them. Two or three, I believe, the latest two or three debt sales. No one bought them. You know who bought the debt? The issuer of the debt, the Federal Reserve. And I often say this on all of my shows, that is tantamount to the crack dealer buying his own dope, smoking it, and telling everybody that he's moving product. That's what that is. And that shows you the dire situation that she is economically. She is deficit spending. There was just a report out talking about Joe Biden is getting ready to pass a 715 to 750 some $billion defense package. Is it defense or is it offense? We have to separate the two, because when you're talking about tactical nuclear weapons, you're not talking about ships called defenders. You're not talking about protect copters. Your weaponry is called attack copters, gunships, destroyers. These are the very names. That is nothing in defense about it. That is all offensive, offensive minded. And half of the stuff is not even working. And you're investing billions upon billions of dollars in this stuff with no real return. As nations around you start to outpace you technologically and economically, and start to catch up with you militarily, because you have been inefficient and inept in budgeting your money for the right reasons. Now, let me pose a question to you. Say, for instance, and I'm going to use the U.S. government's own view against itself, okay? So don't be mad at me. I'm going to use the U.S. government's own view against itself. As far as I can remember, the United States has always said that we're 10 years ahead of our nearest peer, our nearest rival. This is what they say. This is what they have been saying up until recently, up until the last 2 or 3 years. We are 5 years ahead. We're 10 years, we're 20 years ahead militarily. Now, if that is the case, why is it always a cause to up the defense or the war budget every year? I'm asking you these things because these are simple thoughts that everyone should ask. If you are that far ahead of everyone, why is it that the defense or the war budget continues to grow? The black budget that you don't hear about, the off budget that you don't hear about, and the so-called official budget, why do they continue to grow? And I want to ask you this too. Is it reasonable? Is it sensible to continue to bury your nation in debt, building up military capacity and capabilities, right? To encircle the very people who are funding your economic prosperity. You know what that would be tantamount to? And I love to give examples. If you who are listening were paying my mortgage, I don't have a mortgage, by the grace of God. I own my own home by the grace of God outright. I'm thankful to God for that. But say, for instance, I had a mortgage. You were paying my mortgage. You were putting money in my pocket. You were paying my light bill, my water bill, my garbage bill. You were paying my internet. You were paying my apps, because I don't have cable. I have the apps things like Netflix, Hulu, and all that stuff. You were paying all, and you were putting money in my pocket and buying my food. And on top of that, you were taking care of my children. Now, all of that goodwill, right? And then I come and I sneak over in your yard, not in your yard, but around the corner. I know your cousin is living around the corner, and I sneak over there and I murder your cousin. And then the next day I go down the street and then I kill your uncle. And then the next day I go around the corner and then I murder your grandmother. And then one day I come face to face with you. Now you're still paying these bills. And one day I come to your yard and I have a fist fight with your children. Pretty soon, that courtesy, that benevolence that you've shown to me will reach its end, right? And then at the same time, after I fight your children, I start threatening you in your own yard, and I have a pistol pointed at you, saying, I'll do this to you, and if you don't do this, and I'll do this. Now, mind you, I have no income. I have no way to pay my mortgage. I have no way to pay my food bill, my light bill, my power bill, my taxes on my place. I have no way to pay any of that stuff. You were my means of support. But I've killed and raped your cousin. I've killed and raped your sister. I've killed and raped your aunt. I've killed your uncle. I've killed your grandma. And I'm in your yard beating your children with a pistol held at you, telling you if you don't do what I say, I'm going to kill you. That is the policy that the American government is enacting around the world with the people who finance her budget deficit.